What's up? What's up? What's going on, Victorious Army? My victorious family, what's going on with y'all? How y'all doing? Hope everything is well. Hope you're all walking your path very well, starting to have some success. So, today I just want to talk about seeing my father again. So, when I had come to so much realization and understanding about a lot of different things in my own life and my own reality, right? And how for the longest time, would be very afraid, feel very boxed in, feel very sad all the time because of all the different experiences that I had when it came to this quote unquote man, right? One thing's for sure though, he just he just ain't shit, to be honest, right? Because after, as technically he had been kicked out, right? Or really kicked himself out of my life and my mom's life, right? Before he ended up basically kicking himself out, I'll explain what that means a little bit later, right? This man told me that I wouldn't be shit and would never be shit in life, that I'm a failure. As a young child, that's what he told me. This man would make me strip down butt ass naked and stand in a corner and just face the wall, right? And if I had fallen asleep or I moved, he would come and beat the shit out of me, right? This man at sometimes on a daily basis would make me strip down butt ass naked and beat me down. Eventually it got to the point where he would take a chair from the dining room, or what is that really? I mean, I guess we use it as the dining room. It's part of the kitchen, but and take it and put it up against the wall and make me bend over it butt ass naked, right? Butt ass fucking naked. And he would just beat the shit out of me constantly. And then, right, when apparently that wasn't enough, he moved to a 2x4. Oh, man. And then it'd be the same process, right? Make me strip down butt ass naked, and he would say this shit, which as a child would always mess me up a lot, right? Assume the position. Oh, right? And then he would beat me with a 2x4. A 2x4. Earlier it was a belt, but I guess that wasn't good enough for him, right? So he had to go to the 2x4, right? And then this man had also sexually abused me too, right? And now, going through all of these different things as a young child, right? Because eventually, right, I guess my mind had blocked it out, all those traumatic experiences as a child. So I didn't remember till way later when I started coming into my spiritual awakening, right? And then, right, all of that compiled because of, right, it all came back. All these things that my mind was keeping away from me because as a child, right, children are just happy and just doing what they do and in the zone, right? In their own zone. right? After all that came back and compiled on me, right? I remembered all these different things that had really brought me a whole lot of pain and emotional issue as well, right? So when the time came for me to have to see him again because I was helping out my niece, right? At first, like right before I had to see him, right? I was in my mind like, oh, I don't know how this is gonna go. I don't know if I want to do this or be here and this and that, right? But it's not like I'm gonna go anywhere because I'm helping my niece out, right? So then eventually I just got to the point where I was like, you know what? Come on with it. Come here, right? Let's see. Let's see what's gonna happen, right? So when I saw him, right, immediately, right, I already noticed, right, just, oh wow, right, he got thin, he got tiny, right? He's no longer this giant hulking monstrosity, right, that only wanted to tell me I was a failure and beat the shit out of me and make me feel like shit, right? Who sexually abused me, right? Day after week, right? Back when he was, right, here within my life, right? He looked so different, right? So different than what I had seen before. And I guess, right, all the emotion and all the trauma and things, right, compiled, right? Right? Because I guess in my mind, right, he looked like this giant fucking monster. That certainly wasn't the case anymore, right? All right. So, we're in his driveway, right? He walks out. I see him, right? He tries to say some shit like, "How you doing, son?" or "What's going on, son?" Right? I'm like, "I'm here. Shit's difficult. Shit's hard, right?" He said nothing, right? And then, of course, start chopping it up with my niece because, that's her grandfather, technically. So, I had to hold it down for myself, right? But already, right, it's like the way he looked was just pretty bad from what it was, right? And then we went inside the house, right? Started to have a conversation, right? And then a little bit of my madness kind of came out, right? Started asking me what I was doing and stuff, right? Told him about my businesses that I own, or one in particular, my business that I owned, right? Still sitting in my head about, right? This man did these things to me, right? This man called me a failure and told me I wasn't shit and would never be shit in life, right? So that in my tone and in my words, it's like, yeah, shit's a little fucking difficult. No, I didn't think I said it like that, but yeah, shit's a bit difficult, right? And then, right, just still kind of carrying on conversation and whatnot, but, right, I realized there wasn't nothing he could say to me about anything. Anything. Especially since, right, he's not in my life anymore. He is not a part of me, doing anything that I wish to do, that I need to do, right? Right, like, this man no longer has any control over me, right? I'm in here looking like a boss in comparison to what he has going on, right? And I'm just sitting here thinking, oh wow, right? Because he used to be one who was all about his Africanity and all about this and that, right? Which, surprisingly enough, he never really taught me nothing, right? He ain't teach me shit about nothing. Nothing, nobody. Not a Martin Luther King, not a Malcolm X, like nothing. No one. Nothing. Nothing about Africa, like all the stuff he was wearing was talking about, and all these different things. Nothing, right? Nothing. So it got to a point where, right after that little conversation about the businesses, right, and then talk about COVID and talk about all, all the little shit going on, all the, well, large shit. Can I say that, right? But all, all this different stuff going on in the world. Put it that way, right? And then it got time for us to, or at least for me and my niece, right, for us to start figuring out how to, help her get her stuff together and whatnot. So, stayed there, stayed there for a little bit. She ended up having breakfast, right, over there. I didn't eat nothing. I didn't eat nothing, right? Couldn't do it. But right, I just keep thinking I gotta hold it down for my niece, right? Keep myself together, right? Because like it just was not a good time for either one of us, to be honest. Right? So I have to hold my stuff together, right? And then the lady he had there, right? She seemed like a sweet lady. She seemed like a nice lady, right? But I guess of course maybe she knew Alexa, right? But all she asked was like she said other person, right? She asked my niece first, and then she was like other person, right? Which told me, right, or at least I felt, he didn't tell her nothing about me, his son, right? Ain't told nobody nothing about nothing, right? I'm like, wow, right? But I guess it makes sense, right? This is also the person who didn't tell me that I had sisters either, right? To which how I came to know my sisters and my niece and whatnot. So I guess it makes sense, right? Just don't say shit. I'm just other person, right? Then the whole time too, right? I kind of felt, and then the way he was kind of acting and looking, right, that he seemed to feel like he was guilty, right? Guilty about something. I don't know. I don't know, right? And right, to be honest, right, besides like the anger and all of that, right, deep down within me, right, I always had this feeling like I really still wanted my father in my life, right? But it didn't really make sense because I'm like, after all this shit that he did to me, right, and my mother, right, the lack of telling me I had sisters, right, the lack of a lot of things, right? He had nothing, right? Eventually, it got to a point where, right, we ended up making the moves, right? Had to go help my niece out, go get her stuff, right? And it's just, right. So, came down, right? My niece's car, opened her car up, right? She or her battery was dead in her truck, so we had to charge the battery. Luckily, she had a battery charger. It's like, wow. And I guess personally, I need to get one of them things too. But right, standing out there talking, right? It's weird. We're having this conversation, but it's vague and a little off put, right? Because after a while, I got to the point where I was able to master my own anger with it because, right, I realized ain't shit he can tell me. I mean, clearly after the shit he told me, right? Right, ain't shit he can tell me. I'm not his son ever, I think, right? But I'm not his son anymore. He lost that. He lost that privilege, right? He lost that from me because of all of the shit that he had done to me and my mother, right? And then, right, since I'm one who's into cars greatly, right? I love me some cars. Right, just chopping it up about a couple little different things, right? I'd end up talking about all these Hellcats and little stuff, right? And he had told me how he was, you know, working on or no, or how he used to work at auctions and things like that. So he got to drive all the, the different, American vehicles and stuff, along with all the little other stuff, right? Right, because he said he drove Chevy, Dodge, Ford, right, all the best, and all the Mustangs and things, right? And here's where it got weird, at least for a second, right, in the conversation, right? So yeah, that's pretty cool. I got this right now. I got this Challenger right now. The next thing I'm working on is a Mustang, right? And he said nothing. Right, he just told me that right, he drove all these different cars and things, right? So I was thinking, right, like maybe like he'll jump in and say something about it, right? I told him I'm working on a Mustang. He said nothing. After he had just told me he had driven all these different cars and things, right? Nothing. Weird. 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 Right? Just having this really weird conversation, right? But I'm not feeling so weird about it because right now I'm here, right? We in this, definitely helping out my niece. I'm definitely just gonna hold my stuff together, right? So I'm cool, right? And he had nothing to say. He had nothing to say about that part, right? So moving on, right? So we finally get my niece's car battery charged, and now we start moving, right? And right, he parked his shit up in the front of the place my niece was staying at, right? So right, um, my niece and the other lady, right? I guess the lady he's with now. Who's that? um, right, they got into my niece's car, and then right, I get into my car and I see him walking around. I'm like, oh, here we go, right? Maybe he's gonna say something here too, right? So he opens my door, gets into my car, right? And I'm just waiting on something, right? See what he's got to say, right? All he could do is talk about, right? Um, well, I don't even really remember what prefaced the conversation, but he started talking about the Honda, right? And how, right, like that's all his credit could afford him was a little CVT Honda, right? A little nothing, right? And this and that, right? I don't know, like maybe it was my fault for expecting that he would say something different, right? Or he would start to want to have more conversation with me, right? My bad. Right? Or even talk about or, say something about the things that had happened in the past, right? But I guess that's just me, right? And it's weird, through all these different happenings and occurrences with all these different people who, just take advantage of you or just, treat you like shit and tell you all these mean and nasty things that really sucked, right? Really sucked. That somehow they would come around and say something different or be better, right? I don't know. I don't know why I'm expecting that from someone like him, right? But anyway, right? So we drive on down, drive around, talking about the Honda, and he wanted to explain to me how a CVT transmission worked, right? Instead of talking about the thing that I think was probably on his mind too, by the way he was acting, right? And how he was speaking, right? All right, get around to the front. He gets out, right? Gets into his little Honda, drives on off, right? And then we all go back to his place, right? And right, so that happens, and me and my niece go, right, help her bust some different moves to, make sure that she's all right and she can, get where she needs to go and whatnot. Right. So then we come back, right? And now we're just sitting on the couch though, right? And the craziest thing, right, the whole time I just kept thinking, right, I can't believe I'm actually here. Can't believe he's got a house. Can't believe that, I'm here, right? Out of all the places that I'm here, right? At this man's house who caused me all these troubles and pains and shit, right? And everything's just all hunky dory now, right? Didn't have nothing to say, right? He was looking all guilty and acting all strange, right? Like he had something that he might want to say, but wasn't really saying. Like, I don't know, right? It just strange. Strange to say the least, right? So, right. We get back, right? Me and my niece get back to his house after busting the move. So we're just sitting on the couch, right? And then, just sitting there chopping it up with my niece, helping her feel better a little bit, right? Because this just was not a good time for either one of us, right? But I got to be the one to hold it down, hold my mind together, hold my stuff together, right? Not have any explosions, right? Like, right? You just start talking something like, be like, oh, you piece of shit, oh, it's right? Nothing crazy like that, right? So we're just sitting there talking, and then he walks in the room again, right? And he's standing there, right? I'm seeing him out the corner of my eye, but I'm still talking to my niece, we're just still talking. So like he walks into the room, right? He's kind of starts scratching his head, right? And then he left, right? Because the way he looked when he walked in was like he may want to say something, right? He may want to say something, right? Not that I had my hopes up, but I'm just watching, right? At this point, right after the after him getting into my car and then saying nothing, or just acting weird and vague, like I felt like he felt he was guilty about something, right? I'm not pressing him, I'm not mad, I'm just sitting here, right, holding it together. When my anger spice do pop up a little bit, just right. Just holding it together, right? But yeah, he walked into the room, looked nervous, looked guilty, and walked out, right? And just thinking, okay, right? I don't know. I guess once again, me expecting him to say something, me expecting him to do something, right? Me expecting him to be like, can I talk to you for a minute, or step aside after you and your niece talk? And I talk to you. He said nothing, right? He said nothing. He said nothing, right? And eventually, it got to a point where I'm sitting there with my niece, and then she ended up calling her grandmother. She need to talk to her about something. So, I'm just sitting there chilling, right? My niece on the phone and whatnot, and right. I think he comes back in again, right? Only to say, just let me know when you leave, right? Let me know when you leave or when you're about to go and whatnot, right? And I was like, okay, right. And I guess at this point, maybe I'm like, okay, maybe he may say something at the end here, but this is just me expecting shit that just wasn't gonna happen, I guess, right? So it got to the point where, right, she got the phone with her grandmother, start talking to her about, being more creative and, just different things like that, making sure she's all right. She seemed very anxious with a lot of things, so I'm just doing my best to be calm about it, right? You know, console her as much as possible, right? But then, right, while I'm sitting there trying to be the rock, sitting there consoling everybody else, right? Internally I start feeling a little insecure in my own self, I'll be honest, right? Like I just don't be here. I don't know how much longer I'm gonna stay here. I just don't like this whole situation. It just right. So eventually, right, chop it up a little bit more, right? Now I'm making a decision to where I'm about to be up out of here, right? Cause right, I just got to get out of there, right? It's just not a pleasurable situation for anything, especially since right, he says nothing. He said nothing, right? So then, right, I ended up saying, "Oh, I'm leaving and whatnot," right? And he comes out, right? Then, right, said my goodbyes to my niece, right? And right, he said nothing. So I start walking out the door, right? And just cause I'm still just trying to hold it down, be calm, right? He says some stuff like, "Oh, it's good to see you," right? And I just said, "Good to see you too," right? Cause yeah, I'm glad. Initially, I wasn't very glad to see him at all, right? But then I thought, like, just face it head on, right? There ain't nothing he could do or say to me about anything at this point after everything he brought into my life and brought into my mind and my reality, right? Like, he can't tell me shit about what it means to be a man or what it means to do anything, right? Can't say shit. At least this is just what I'm thinking, right? So that happens, right? My niece wanted to walk me out to the car. It's kind of her, right? And that was it. I rolled on off, right? Rolled on off, went home. But the craziest thing about all of this was just that though, no matter how I had my business together, right? No matter how, right, talking about all these different cars and things, right? No matter how much I came in there looking like a boss doing my own thing, or at least how I felt I was looking, right? I still left there feeling like the failure. I still left there feeling like I was wrong or I had lost, right? Ain't that some shit, right? After all that, right? Come there looking like a boss, got my shit straight, right? Right. No matter what I said, right, to see if he would say something or, anything, right? He said nothing, right? Had to be strong for myself and for my niece in that situation, right? And yet I still walked away feeling like a failure, right? It's crazy. But I tell you the story because I wanted to tell you that whoever may have greatly harmed you or traumatized you in your life, made you feel worthless, right? Did some shit to you that affected you way later on in your growing experience in your life, right? They hold no power over you. They hold none. They hold no power over you. Not one bit. None. They can't do to you what they did before. Right. Right. I'm no longer his responsibility for a good while. And I guess technically he made sure of that shit, right? And then really all in all, right, the other thing is just that the other thing that really bothered me, right, because after I looked past my pain, right, after I, just start talking about things, right, when we first initially walked into his house and then we sat down, right, and he was having breakfast, just having conversation and whatnot, right, all he could talk about was how he failed, how he had these different opportunities and he failed, right? Or how he could have went and did this and went and did that, but he didn't, right? All these different things, right? And I'm just sitting here thinking, right? Well, damn. Basically, he kicked his own ass, right? He failed himself, right? You know, and every once in a while, right? A little bit of anger, pull up, right? Just like, right? Can't let that out. Can't let that out, right? All he could talk about was how he failed, right? And how he was just doing the bare minimum to just survive, right? And I'm just like, dang, right? Just part of me, like, initially wanted to be fully just mad at him, right? Earlier in my life, before this point, I just wanted to hate this man because of all this stuff that he did, right? But shit, truly, right? It's nothing there to hate, right? And that's not who I am, right? I'm not a hater, right? But then it's like, he's the one who really lost, right? He's the one who really lost and just chose to be a failure, right? That was his choice, right? And me overcoming all of these different things, right, that he had done to me in my life, right? Messed up my mom, right? Right? Messed me up, right? Messed up my sister's mom, right? And my sister too, right? Because this abuse moved way beyond just my life, as it turns out, right? And I still walked away feeling like the failure. It just don't make sense, right? But he's the one who truly lost out. He's the one who truly lost out. All right? A lot of it explains so much, right? About my family, about why I'm in this position here, about why my mother feels the way she does at certain points when it comes to me. Like, why she'd be willing for me to just get out, right? No matter all the help I gave, no matter how much energy I gave into doing for her, right? You know, just trying to be a good son, I guess, right? I'm just doing what I feel is right, right? Right? For the longest time, right? I just didn't understand, right? After a certain point, right? Mom just started acting different, right? But then I get it. I realized why, right? All that shit came from him, right? All that shit came from him, right? Just like how, right? He broke my mother's heart, right? And my mom told me at least at one point, right back before, like, she just, no, just ain't really fucking with me no more, right? That he actually tried to raise a hand to her and hit her, right? She knocked his ass down. It's just funny to me, but it all makes sense, right? Because he chose to sit there and wallow in his own shit, right? And just choose to be a mean ass, right? Right? He just chose to do all of that. Chose to fail himself, right? Chose to not go for these different opportunities. Chose to, I don't know, like whatever else he did, right? Right? He chose all of these things, right? And he failed, right? And the fact that it all makes sense, right? Because I kind of look like the man that broke my mom's heart, right? And she halfway kind of loves me, another half probably don't give a shit, right? It all makes sense. But here's the difference, right? Since I'm me, right, I get to make my choices, right? I get to do what I like to do. I chose to overcome all of these different painful things that happened in my life and my reality because I chose to, right? I didn't let his crap get to me, and then, right, a lot of the times, like I said earlier, my mind probably blocked a lot of it out. But even when, right, I did remember, right, and I started to realize these things, right, I still chose to do the best that I could for myself and for my mom, right? At least as far as, what the situation now is, right? As far as the move goes, right? I'm packed up, ready to get up on out of here, right? Real close as far as that part goes. But once again, right, like I said earlier, right? All of this meant to me that one, it's your choices of what you choose to do and how you choose to live your life. Two, right? Though other people may do things to you and tell you these things and hurt you and, have all these different problems, right? Come to your doorstep. It's only you who makes the choice, right? And if you choose to fail yourself, that's on you, right? If you choose to not overcome your situation, no matter what anyone has done to you in your past, right? Then it is you who's truly lost and will fail, right? As he did. So all he did was fail. Talk about only the thing that he could fail, right? This man ain't conscious. This man ain't Africanity, nothing, right? He had none of that in there either, right? So I'm thinking, well, it's just some fake shit, right? Just a whole bunch of bullshit, right? Or at least he was the bullshittier, right? Because now I'm thinking like, I was told about what happened to him in his past, right? The fact that all these things happened, probably plus of course, other things you just simply don't know, right? Right. It's crazy how I was feeling this way for everybody else, feeling so compassionate for everybody else, but my own self, right? And to be honest, I feel like,